Hi everybody, welcome to our special Cyber Week edition of TeikaTV. Thank you so much for joining us during this very, very busy week. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. This is Sarah Hoffman from our customer success team.
Hey guys.
And our CTO, Aatish Salvi.
Hey everyone.
So, just want to remind everyone that this is your show. We love it when there's people contributing, sellers writing in with questions, and that's why we're here. So please message in. I'm literally going to read everything off the screen and we're going to have a discussion. So it's been a really busy week, guys. Have you done any of your shopping, Aatish?
Yeah,
Tell the truth.
so actually I was on vacation in London for a week, so I cleared out my Christmas shopping. So I am all set. Done.
Really?
Done.
Honestly?
Done.
Okay, old school though.
Old school.
Physical.
Yeah, physical goods, not
Really?
online.
Oh, how dare you.
I know, right?
Sarah, how about you? Have you done any shopping yet?
I've done a little, majority online. I went Thanksgiving evening to a couple stores, but I've pretty much been strictly online, as most people my age probably are. So
Amazon?
A little bit on Amazon, and then also just sites that I knew were running specials that I wanted to be shopping on. So, but I still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so guys, write in. Let's hear where you guys shopped. But seriously, we want to share some important data. I mean, we've been working. It's been a busy day for us, Tish and myself. We've been working with our data science team, studying some of the stats and metrics from this week, and it was officially the largest volume day in US history in terms of e-commerce on Monday. $6.6 billion of revenue, so huge across all of e-commerce. Aatish, I mean, let's start by getting a sense of, did that reflect in terms of our data? I mean, what have you seen in terms of smaller sellers?
Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting. Smaller sellers. I mean, obviously everyone had, I think, from our portfolio, a fairly strong Cyber Friday, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The interesting thing for Alasdair is how early on the effects of Cyber Monday and Black Friday started happening. Everyone started seeing their ACOS rise not on Thursday, not on Wednesday, but on the 1st of November. Right? If we look at across our clients, across all the sellers that we work with, we saw ACOSs start to go up November 1st. Like there was almost a weirdly sharp rise right around that day, and then continue to move at a steady pace up through this past weekend, right? And what that tells me is that Amazon presumably started driving traffic to its website, right? Started, doing its advertising early, and people started getting ready and placing themselves, right, for the Cyber Weekend, starting at the month. So I think that ACOS rise, by the way, it's not over. Right, it's not Christmas yet. It's not done.
So even more focus on that sort of mysterious metric that sellers are, quite frankly, obsessed about. I mean, it's just gone up. And
yeah, I mean, what is that? Right, and like, what does that actually mean for our sellers? Right, is a good question. Which is that at the end of the day, it means that there are two things that are driving up your ACOS, right? Because we're all focused on that metric, right? One is everything costs more. It costs more to buy a click. It costs more to buy an advertising spot than it did before. But the second thing is there's also more to buy. So there are more people searching. More search terms are connecting to your keywords. There are more opportunities, more clicks, and because the holiday season is a browsing shopping season, it's tough, right, on advertising because people will visit your goods once, twice, 3 times, not buy, and that because they're browsing, trying to decide, oh, is this right for my nephew, right for my cousin, right for my aunt?
Yeah, no, I get it. So, Sarah, you work with dozens of our sellers every day. You're talking to the new sellers that come onto our platform. What's your perspective? I mean, is it a really stressful week? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, for anyone whose age is starting off on Amazon, or if this is kind of one of the times of year where you do the most in sales, this is like a very key time. And people are definitely stressing and feeling that pressure, but I think the preparation, kind of like Aatish mentioned, it happens early. So they were prepared, but there's definitely kind of a sense of did I see enough sales? And also, why is my ACOS so high?
Right.
People, I think, are concerned kind of why, yes, it's great, my sales are going up, but I don't really necessarily understand why my spend is also going up. This is supposed to be a time when I'm seeing sales go up and ACOS go down, and they're not seeing that, and they're not quite sure why.
Well, I mean, and I think because of that, this season is a time when you have to run harder to stay in the same place. You have to spend more just to keep your top line revenue in the same place it was before, unless you did your homework in September and October and you already have great sales ranks. So one interesting thing from our data is that if you're a brand that was already showing up on the first page of search results, if you were already really good on your sales rank for your category, you did much better because you didn't have to bid on the really big keywords, the really expensive keywords, because your organic sales carried you through a whole bunch of the season. So definitely momentum is a big factor, and preparation paid off in a big way. So, I mean, Sarah, how do you, starting, I think it's very adventurous to try and start your brand in the Christmas. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you think about it, you're like, oh, well, it's the holiday shopping season. It's a great time to launch a brand. But is it?
My argument is going to be no, because if you're just starting off, you're a small seller, you need to take the time to invest in the things that are really going to make you profitable during this time of year. And those things are, I mean, Alasdair and I talked about it a little bit, like what are the key aspects to running sponsored products in general? It's making sure that you're brand registered, and it takes a long time to get that trademark if you're starting off as a brand, making sure that your campaigns are set up exactly how they're supposed to be. And if you don't make that initial investment of really just your own time as a seller.
So yeah, I want to pick up on that, Sarah, because let's use this to help the audience. New sellers, they're hearing about these amazing stats in e-commerce, and they're trying to catch the wave, like every entrepreneur is trying to do. Where do they fail, Sarah? Like, where do you see people coming in and really struggling? And just quickly, we'd love to get some input from the team. And I know that we're having some slight technical issues, but I see some comments coming through. So on our side, if we can see those comments come through, that'd be good. And so back over to you, Sarah. Like, what are the hardest things to do? Where do you see the most errors? And it would be great to get the audience to comment in as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd love to hear where people find, like, they feel like the biggest struggle and the biggest obstacle is as they start off when it comes to sponsored products. But I've heard just a lot. I mean, to me, the biggest place that you can fail is if you don't start with campaign setup, and you also just don't necessarily understand that sponsored products isn't a quick fix to your business. Yeah. It's definitely something that's absolutely necessary, but if you go into it thinking, oh, today this is where I'm at, and a month from now I want to be 3 times greater than this, it happens very occasionally, but I mean, you've looked at the numbers a lot, and that's just, it's a process.
So the opposite of that, so how do you, I mean, let's help everybody. I mean, what do you do then? Should you be putting it into an Excel spreadsheet? Like, how should you lay out? Because at the end of the day, you still have to choose how much money to spend. I mean, you can't just say, okay, well, I'm not going to be obsessed about ACOS every day. What do you do, Tish?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best thing to do is to figure out, really have a good understanding coming into the season of what your margins are, right? That's where you start. How much money am I actually going to make when I sell whatever it is that I'm selling?
It looks like we've got a comment there. If we could just move down the screen so we can take a look at the comment, that would be great. There's a few coming through. So it looks like there's a technical issue there. So John said, would you run sponsored ads on top keywords that you already rank on page 1 organically for? So John, thank you so much.
Yeah,
that's a really good question.
Really great question.
So Tish, you should take that one.
Right, so there are 2 aspects to this. Would you? It depends significantly on what you're seeing in terms of the performance of that keyword, right? Which is a bit of a cop-out answer, but I'll go into it. There are 2 reasons to bid on a keyword. One is offense. You want to get traffic. If you're already high on sales rank for a keyword, that is a much less compelling reason, because you're probably going to end up showing up for a bunch of stuff that you're already showing up in organic search. There is a second reason, though, which is defense, which means if you stop bidding on a keyword, it's made it cheaper for all of your competitors to bid on that keyword. So it's a tough call, but I would say that if the keyword is hot and really heavily contested and expensive, get out. If you're on the search page and you're doing well, get out.
Well, what about this one, though? What about mobile? So this, in the stats that we also read publicly, Adobe Insights was one of the most interesting, talked about 45% of the transactions were on mobile. Isn't it a true statement that if you're running sponsored products, the interface is different? So the notion of page one organically on mobile is different. I mean,
it's cross
device. So,
right.
So John, I would make the argument that
that's a good
you
point,
should certainly test it. I think mobile's a fact. I mean, you've basically got 50-50 split between mobile users now. And I think Amazon, I personally, haven't done any shopping yet, but if I do, I'm going to be probably using mobile. And I think, so are many of the other Prime subscribers, and you're going to be able to target them with sponsored products in a slightly different way. It just relates to the dynamics of search. So one other question I wanted to share with you or ask you, Sarah, is around categories. So you work with a lot of sellers. Who do you think is doing the best? I think a lot of the audience really likes to understand, where the opportunities lie, which categories are winning.
Yeah. So this time of year, you definitely see that increase when it comes to gifts, toys. A lot of our relatively smaller sellers, even if you sell kind of a toy that's a little bit different or has some value, definitely saw an increase in sales in the past weekend. I saw also, kind of going back to that early aspect where just kind of specifically something that came to mind was one of our smaller sellers who really only carries a couple products, but they're specifically aimed at like walkers, and like I don't want to give away exactly what the product is.
Walkers as in baby walkers?
As in so like for elderly people who need to use a walker.
Sure,
it's like a idea to help you carry your belongings and like still have access to them. And I specifically looked at that account because I was interested. It's a relatively small one, but I noticed that the sales picked up even before Thanksgiving, and it made me think to myself, well, I went to my grandmother's house on Thanksgiving, so maybe people were already buying, like thinking gifts, like I'm gonna give my gift now, or I'm gonna travel with it now. But back to kind of the point, that was a little side note, but back to categories, I'd say just anything that's really gift related, but just understanding that the traffic is kind of big, even if your sales are seasonal and they're mostly summer products, people are still thinking about those this time of year because those are still things that people want.
I think that's a really good point, Sarah, and I think the idea of the seasons being spanned out, I think in a way the news and the media really want to kind of call out big numbers and like pinpoint, let's say Cyber Monday, but the reality is before Cyber Monday was the biggest day was in fact Prime Day, Amazon's 2017 Prime Day. And it just made me think about what you're talking about, and even the data that Aatish is talking about here is the fact that the holiday season, in a way driven by Amazon, is stretched out more because people want to be shopping on their own time rather than having to, the whole concept of
online
Cyber
shopping.
Monday and Black Friday and waiting till 3 in the morning to kind of queue up outside, it just doesn't make any sense anyway. So I think that's the common theme, the sort of triangulating between, Aatish, you on the data side. Here, look, we've got another question here from Michael. If I'm a brand and I'm selling commodities, does it make sense to run headlined ads? I've read it's more for brands with IP and a new unique product. So really good question, Michael. So what we're talking about here is headline search. The fact that the smaller sellers or every seller on Seller Central is now able to use a banner that was previously only for Vendor Central. And that's a really good question. And Aatish, over to you on the sort of commodity versus IP question.
It's a good question. I think that, look, headline search is more expensive. Clicks are more expensive. So you want to make sure, and it's less targeted, right, than sponsored products is. So you're not trying to drive specific sales of specific products through headline search. What you're trying to do is introduce people to your brand as a whole. So who does headline search work best for? Brands with a decent portfolio of products. If you're a brand with only one product, right, it's not going to be as effective for you. If you're a brand with 3 or 4 different products where you can create a story in your headline search ad about who you are as a brand, what you're doing, and then get people to introduce to multiple products at the same time, that's when it's the most effective. So I'd say if you have your own brand and you have a good product portfolio underneath it, and you have SP already running to help you figure out which keywords you should be bidding on so that you're not trying to explore using HSA, then definitely use HSA and use those keywords that you already know work for you from SP, and you will see good results. And I actually think, over the holidays especially, HSA and brand advertising is important because when you've got people browsing a lot, right, having them introduced to the full portfolio of what you're selling in one click is really valuable, because you're capturing users who they might be shopping for their cousin, but then they see the other 3 products that you're offering and go, oh, that would be great for my aunt, right? Like there's some real value there.
So you recommend HSA. Now, I mean, there isn't a minimum amount to spend, so is there any harm in testing?
Testing HSA?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think that though the danger there is if you make up your mind and don't spend enough before you've done it, you may be making up your mind before you have enough data to really get a notion of whether or not it's working for you.
Yeah, so if anyone has any feedback on HSA, we'd love to see that. So over to you, Sarah. In terms of just, let's talk about what it's like as an entrepreneur during this sort of week, if you like. I mean, I remember actually over 10 years ago when FBA didn't really exist, the fact that it was very, very stressful in terms of physically shipping goods. And I think e-commerce sellers today have a much better situation because they can outsource that to the Amazon robotics, for example. What have you seen on our customer success team? I know that there's just a lot of people watching this who are in the middle of it. Is it a really stressful time? Like, are people kind of getting really hyped up about it on the seller side?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, Thursday, a lot of people sat down with their families and were like, I have the day off. And then for all of our sellers, they were like, well, tomorrow is the biggest, starting at midnight, this is one of the biggest days of the year for me. So there's still that kind of sense of like, you want to relax, but your business needs to be, everything needs to be perfect coming into Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and then just rolling on into the holiday. So making sure that your inventory levels are where they need to be is definitely helpful.
Well, inventory, that's a really good one. So yeah, I think that's the tough part, right? It's because you're making a bet, volume's going to go up. I mean, there's no, just like these stats that we keep hearing. I mean, they're all new. Every year they beat what was there before. So if you've had to stock inventory, so I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of that feeling of risk. I mean, you want to sell those goods, right? And the question is when. Do you have any sense of that? I can add to it, but I want to get your sense from the sellers. Like, when do you think sellers get really nervous? I mean, we've got a couple of big holidays, and of course Christmas at the towards the end of the month.
I think probably right about now is when they're feeling the most stress, because now you're kind of able to see those numbers from Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You can see that Cyber Monday this is the biggest selling day that we've had so far. So looking at all of those sales and saying, well, why did I only get maybe this portion of them when I wanted this much?
Even using me and you as a data point, because we haven't bought all of our gifts yet.
Right, yeah, but I think that there's still just such a huge media presence, and there's so much hype to
it's hard not to feel bad, right? You feel left out of the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I think one thing I think is interesting though is to think about like how efficient FBA is and how efficient Prime is and how last minute people are going to be. So I remember looking at this data and actually experiencing it myself, and actually it wasn't the Cyber Monday that we used to see a big spike. It was the sort of the last Monday before the shipping.
Well, that's when you're going to be doing your shopping.
I know. That is what's going to happen. I can tell. So I think it's interesting. I mean, I think what's also interesting is the efficiency that Amazon's had. I know that in previous years, sellers have really struggled with getting their inventory to FBA. I mean, we have seen data saying that the warehouses have slowed down. But Amazon's got it right. I mean, Jeff Wilke, for those of you who have read The Everything Store, Jeff Wilke is the other big Jeff at Amazon. And he tweeted something out about just the sheer number, and he actually cited sellers or merchants, I think he might have called them. So I think the efficiency of the Amazon machine is got so good on delivery that we might actually see more of a spike, over the end. I get a sense that Adobe Insights is a brilliant company. They got a lot of press from saying it's the biggest day of the year, but how much of it is that really relevant to sellers? And I think it's actually longer. But we'll see. I mean, we're going to study the data.
So then, Alasdair, it begs the question, okay, let's say Cyber Monday didn't go great, or Black Friday was not what you wanted to be. What can you do between now and then, right, to fix it? Let's say, because we're not done. It's not like the shopping's all done, right? That's, I think, what we're talking about here. There's kind of this feeling like, oh, well, it's over now. But it's not over, right? There's plenty of time left between now and Christmas during which a lot of stuff is going to get bought. So I would say it's not good to take your eye off the ball, regardless of what happened, whether you did well or poorly on Friday and Monday. You're on. I mean, as a seller, I think you're biting your nails and you're on for the next several weeks until Christmas is through.
So, so what are the variables? You've already got your inventory.
You're not going to be able to do much about that.
So you've got price and you've got advertising. So talk to me about price. I mean, we've been studying this with some of our econometrics. Folks that are, we have an amazing data set here. So we're able to kind of study the effects of price elasticity, of course, and at this time of year, huge demand. So, price, if you think about Uber surge pricing and just, dynamic pricing in general, airline tickets, etc. And so are you suggesting sellers might lower their price?
No, I'm suggesting that sellers, look, the dirty secret is that most sellers don't actually change their pricing very much at all over the course of the year. They think about pricing and look at pricing very rarely, unless they're using a product like ours, right? Like, and where we're
you're
actually
about brands, though.
Yes, I'm talking about brands, right? And so, I mean, obviously, yes. If you're fighting for the buy box, that's a whole different story, right? But for brands, you don't mess around with your pricing much. What I'm saying is mess around with your pricing, right? Because right now, what's happening? You're getting so much traffic that you can run experiments and get results very, very quickly. Now, my advice, of course, is don't run experiments unless you're a statistician. Don't run experiments unless you're using machine learning. Come talk to us about that. But if you want to give it a shot, go run some experiments. You'll find out really quickly what the price elasticity is for your products because you're getting so much traffic to your pages, right? So it's a good time to be experimenting.
And where should you be? I mean, if you wanted to give some advice, I mean, just thinking it through, thinking about the data. I mean, at a basic level, what's very interesting, I think for the audience would be to look at inside. If you're on Amazon, looking inside Seller Central, and looking at the number of sessions. I mean, that would be very fascinating, and it'd be good to get any feedback any of the sellers have, or certainly check it out later on.
Yeah.
But the sessions view in the business reports of Seller Central are going to give you a sense of the conversion rates. And with the conversion rates, you can get a real sense of, are you seeing traffic to the page? Obviously, you don't want to be adjusting pricing without seeing that data because you might be chasing the wrong thing.
Right. I mean, and that's the way you do it, right? So the way you run a pricing experiment, if you're not using our software, is you go into the business report and you look at your sessions. And then you change your price, and you see if your conversion rate from sessions to orders went up or went down. If it didn't change, right, then your price change didn't make a difference. If you raised it and it didn't change, great, keep it at the higher price. If you lowered it and it didn't change, then what that tells you is, nope, go switch back to the, and then try going up, right? If you don't see elasticity, in other words, if you're changing the price but nothing's happening, keep trying to push up. If you're seeing heavy elasticity and you change the price and a lot happens, go lower and see if you can get a bigger chunk of sales and then end up getting a lot more.
Yeah, that's good. So let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about non-Amazon. So we asked this question earlier, Sarah. I said, were you just buying on Amazon? And I think you said no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So And obviously, Aatish, you were buying stuff in England.
Right,
physically
exactly. Physically from stores. I mean,
bricks and mortar
who
shops.
does that?
Yeah, well, they have really nice Christmas markets there.
Well, that's
actually.
exactly why.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah, I did.
Covent Garden?
I did. I went to Leicester
Literally.
Square, Covent Garden. Yeah, no,
Wow.
Harrods. Did the
Oh my God.
whole circuit.
Wow. I'm jealous. Okay, yeah, coming back to it. So I think what was also interesting in the statistics was the fact that we saw volume and good reports for Walmart, eBay,
Right.
and some others. And Sarah, we were talking a little bit about this. You talked about eBay's campaign that they've been running. You said that eBay,
Yeah.
what was that again?
Part of their strategy, I mean, I had a couple of their ads come at me and it was like, have you checked eBay? Which I thought was super interesting because honestly, I hadn't. So, and with Amazon being this giant and Walmart is trying to catch up as well, but other places like eBay, for people who sell on there, it's surprisingly, I hear from a lot of sellers that they do a lot of business there, and eBay had their best year in like their 22 years or something this past weekend. So the fact that they did that much in sales on their site is just a really good sign that maybe, I mean, Amazon, as we kind of know, it is dominant, but it's really important to think about the other places that you sell and making sure that that's a consistent experience, of course, but just thinking about that there's all these other giants are trying to invest in bringing people to their sites as well.
I think, yeah, no, that's a really good point, and yeah, thanks for sharing. I think there's also this sort of interesting dynamic that happens when companies like Amazon emerge, where other channels, other businesses create sort of niches. So obviously, eBay, even in that marketing, I mean, it's implying that check us second. And I think for eBay, we see a lot of success from sellers that are selling, resellers or refurbished goods. I know that major manufacturers, use the eBay as a sort of a liquidation channel. I think on the other hand, when you look at the success of Facebook and Instagram, we were talking about this earlier. The sort of the embedded. It's almost like that feel that Amazon in ways doesn't have when you can start to create more of a personality around the product. So we see a lot of our brands, and we're working with Facebook optimization and Instagram optimization now, where you see a lot of fashion brands, cosmetics doing really, really well on Instagram. What do you think? I mean, I know that you work with a number of these brands as well.
Yeah. No, so I think that if you can get those Facebook, so we all know that people are going on Amazon with the intent to buy. So Amazon will have that advantage, but where Facebook and especially Instagram has the advantage is that they have that lifestyle opportunity, which when it comes to Amazon, you have to pay a little bit extra to run headline search ads to give your customers that experience, to tell your story, or you have to have enhanced brand content, which means that someone's already clicked in to one of your products to see it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, you get that right then and there. You have that picture, you're just scrolling through, and in a lot of ways it fits into your lifestyle because you're just on social media. The lifestyle picture could just be someone out in an outfit doing something that you also like to do. And then you are instantly like, oh, well, let me think about that. I've never considered buying that before, and that apparel is huge
it's
in
really
that
good
way.
point, like, so the behavioral economics behind it, and even and just trying to map that to your own product line. I mean, getting really smart about what you're selling. I mean, a lot of the things that we're talking about, I mean, we work with so many different sellers across so many different categories. I mean, what's really good about the sellers that perform well are the ones that really understand their buyers, and I think especially what you're saying there about discovery and maybe more of an impulse buy on Instagram. I mean, you're just there's the psychology of seeing something very visual in your face, and yeah, it's interesting. What do you think?
I think one of the things that's interesting about the holiday, what we're seeing in search terms and keywords over the holiday, is also that demographic, in a weird sort of way, demographic targeting is becoming more important. Because typically when you're shopping for the holiday, you have someone in mind that you're shopping for. They are a person who's of a certain age, they're like a relationship, right? And so search terms like best toys for kids or best presents for grandma, right? Those are the kinds of searches people are running over the holiday season. And so when you're thinking about what keywords you want to be buying in November and December, right? it's different than the keywords you might be buying the rest of the year because people don't shop in that browsing fashion on Amazon as much. Amazon is much more of a targeted buying site.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah.
Right, except for during this time of year.
I would make the argument that for that reason, Instagram and Facebook ads are going to do really well. I mean, knowing that I haven't bought anything yet, I bet you I end up buying some. This is the time of year where I actually do pay attention to television ads. It's almost like I'm okay to be interrupted.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, that's
because I need ideas. Because let's face it, right? We're all out of ideas for what to get people. We're desperately looking around on the internet, on television for something that's going to be a good gift idea, and that's how we're searching. And so Instagram, Facebook, where you've got curation, really somebody else who's done that work for you and is like, hey, I've got a whole page of beautiful pictures of stuff you can buy your aunt, right? That's great. And Amazon isn't quite there yet in an interesting
I think that's where it'll be interesting to see where they go from this sort of super, it's almost that Amazon's too efficient, so there isn't enough sort of leeway.
Browsing,
very, very interesting stuff. So it's, we're out of time now, but it's been a really fun discussion. If anyone has any feedback, please follow up with us. And, you know, of course, on a lot of the stuff that we've covered, you know, we're here to help. I mean, we are here and we're obsessed with seller profitability and making sure you make the right decision. So, you know, it's the end of, coming up to the end of a very exciting week for e-commerce, and, you know, we'd love to hear from any of you. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, bye.
Bye.